Sumerian tablets are probably one of the oldest form of written record that we have.
What we're looking at here is a Sumerian tablet that actually shows the tree of life, flanked by divine beings. You can see here the Anunnaki on each side.
Sumerian tablets are probably one of the oldest form of written record that we have. What we're looking at here is a Sumerian tablet that actually shows the tree of life, flanked by divine beings. You can see here the Anunnaki on each side. A machine trained in the oldest language known to man has just translated a clay fragment pulled from a ruined Sumerian temple. They've been translated, and they tell exciting stories about how gods intermingled with human beings and actually had a hand in the creation of human beings. At first, researchers thought it was an ancient superstition until AI cross-checked the phrases against real astronomical records. The match was too precise to ignore. Prime numbers, orbital alignments, geological anomalies, all hidden in Sumerian lines thousands of years old. That's when they realized this wasn't meant for ancient people. This was a message buried in clay for someone who could read through time. And now that AI has found it, we're about to become the first generation to truly understand it. Found where none should be. The discovery was an accident. Restoration teams working in the ancient city of Nippur were scanning tablets from a temple library long thought to be a storage vault. Over 40,000 clay fragments had been pulled from the rubble over the last century. Most were cataloged, unlabeled, or half-burnt by ancient fires. But one of them didn't match the others. When researchers ran it through hyperspectral imaging, they saw something strange. The tablet had layers, not just regular wear and tear, but intentional depth like text had been written on top of older writing. And in the deeper layer, something new appeared. And have a look at the writing that's been hiding underneath. So, no one's seen that writing for 4,000 or 5,000 years. Yeah, the only person that's seen it previously is the one who wrote it. Unlike the usual economic records, grain counts, trade routes, offerings, this fragment had no clear function. Its symbols were sharper, more uniform, as if pressed with a mechanical stylus. Ash embedded in the clay dated the tablet to around 3,200 BCE, much older than expected. And the clay itself had a strange signature, a blend of local soil and flood sediment. That caught attention because sediment like that only forms after major environmental disruptions. The structure of the text wasn't free form. It followed patterns of prime numbers, mirrored repetition, rhythmic spacing, the kind of format used in modern encrypted storage. That's when the team realized what they had. This tablet wasn't a ritual. It was a message left behind by a civilization that knew something was coming. A machine reads the oldest language. For over 100 years, humans tried to piece together the secrets of the Sumerians. Linguists, historians, archaeologists, all of them working with fragile clay, damaged signs, and half-erased meanings. But no matter how hard they tried, there were always gaps, broken fragments, and sentences that led nowhere. Symbols with 10 meanings. Some signs meant grain. The same signs in a different context could mean death. It was like trying to solve a puzzle where half the pieces were dust until the machine stepped in. It learned how the language evolved. It studied grammar rules across dialects from Old Sumerian to Akkadian to Babylonian. And more importantly, it learned what human translators never noticed. For example, some lines on the Nippur tablet had odd spacing. To the human eye, it looked like wear and tear. But the AI flagged a repeating pattern in the spaces themselves, a sequence matching modulo prime number distributions, often used in modern error-correcting codes. That spacing was deliberate. Even stranger, the tablet's phrases weren't just metaphors. The system found 3 simultaneous translations per line. The first was a literal translation, the straightforward reading of each symbol. The second was a numerical translation, converting characters into numbers based on ancient Sumerian base 60 math. And the third was an astronomical mapping, words that mirrored planetary alignments and celestial markers. The more the machine read, the clearer it became. This wasn't just writing, it was code. One line read, "When the black sun rises, the clay will speak its name. The sky's measure turns once more." At first, human scholars called this poetic, but the AI translated black sun as a specific astronomical term, solar occlusion, the moment during a solar eclipse when the sun appears fully dark. Sky's measure mapped to the ecliptic tilt, a measurable planetary phenomenon, and clay will speak had a double meaning. Humans made from clay and silicon, the clay from which all modern computers are built. The machine had uncovered a triple-coded prophecy, layered so that no ancient reader could decode it. But a machine trained in language, math, and astronomy could. The Sumerians didn't just leave behind stories. They built a trapdoor in time, a message that could only be unlocked by the tools of the future. And now that AI has opened that door, what were we supposed to find on the other side? Sumerian knowledge of the heavens. When most people hear ancient stargazing, they picture a group of priests staring at the sky, drawing stars in the sand, maybe getting some of them right. But the Sumerians weren't guessing. They were tracking, mapping, and calculating. And according to the newly decoded fragments, they were doing it with precision that still baffles modern astronomers. Way before Babylon, way before Greece, the Sumerians had already identified constellations, recorded planetary movements, and built time systems that we still rely on today. Is already 1,000 years old. It descends from the first pictographic Sumerian script of about 3,200 BC. You know how we use 60 seconds in a minute and 360 degrees in a circle? That's them. That's Sumerian sexagesimal mathematics. A base 60 system that wasn't just clever. It was designed for astronomy. It let them divide the sky, the day, and the year with almost perfect symmetry. And that wasn't an accident. It was a system built for tracking cycles, big ones. The new translation system pulled up a group of tablets that scholars had previously ignored, mainly because they looked like shopping lists or star charts filled with repeated numbers. But AI noticed something else. Hidden inside those repetitions were cyclical markers, numbers that show up in prime patterns mirrored across centuries describing orbits, return intervals, and strange phrases. One of the biggest red flags came from a phrase that shows up in multiple fragments across different centuries in different dialects. The gate of Anu turns red. Anu was the sky god. The gate likely refers to a part of the sky, a crossing point, a region near the ecliptic. In modern terms, this might be the galactic plane or a geomagnetic window that aligns with solar activity. The turning red. Some researchers now think it could describe auroras, bright red skies caused by magnetic storms. That would mean the Sumerians were tracking space weather thousands of years ago. And this is where it gets weird. The decoded warning tablet from Nippur doesn't just reference stars. It talks about 7 watchers, just like we see with the naked eye today. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, the Sun, and the Moon. But one of those watchers is described differently. It's called Enlil's star, the one who returns from darkness, a body that doesn't follow a smooth orbit, something irregular. For years, some called this Nibiru, a rogue planet, a myth. But now, with AI digging deeper and comparing the numbers, it looks less like a fantasy and more like a long-period comet or even a massive planetary object with an orbit so wide it only comes near Earth every few thousand years. And when it does, things change. The texts describe it bringing fire beneath the waters and the sky turning in reverse. These aren't random prophecies. They line up with real anomalies. Spikes in cosmic radiation found in ice cores, abrupt magnetic flips, mass extinctions. It's like the Sumerians had already cracked a cosmic rhythm, one they believed would reset the Earth. And that rhythm, according to their records, it's not finished. When myth matches Earth's memory. At first glance, ancient flood stories sound like folklore, dramatic tales of divine punishment, fire raining from the sky, rivers rising past mountains. But once I began connecting these myths to modern geological data. Those old stories suddenly didn't seem so exaggerated. The decoded Sumerian fragment mentions something eerie. The waters climbed past the temple steps. The sky cracked with flame. And those who knew had already vanished. For centuries, scholars dismissed lines like that as poetic exaggeration. But now, sediment cores from the Persian Gulf tell a different story. But it's the 3D model constructed from these data that is truly remarkable. A massive flood event, sudden and violent, left a layer of silt and meltwater residue dating back to around 5200 BCE. That matches the timeline of early dynastic Sumer. That flood layer wasn't just mud, it was laced with burnt organic particles, charred seeds, and blackened minerals, all pointing to something far more intense than a typical storm. Scientists now believe it could have been the aftermath of a solar flare, a comet impact, or a seismic volcanic eruption. But it gets even stranger because ice core samples pulled from Greenland and Antarctica show a sudden spike in cosmic radiation during the same time period. This spike is a signature you can't fake. AI ran language comparisons across different flood myths from Kish Uruk and Nippur. Many of them describe the same elements: heat before water, darkness before fire, a star that grew larger over time. These are not random metaphors. These are sequential descriptions of a real-world impact event or solar bombardment, something that would align with both geological traces and the astronomical clues buried in the earlier sections. Even pottery shards, thousands of them found across Mesopotamian excavation sites, are showing elevated levels of magnetic microparticles. These particles are proof of geomagnetic disturbance, the kind that could only happen during a serious shift in Earth's magnetic field. I didn't just translate those records, it connected them to something we never expected. Science and data, memory embedded in the Earth itself. Lesser-known connections, global synchrony of symbols. At first, this tablet seemed like an isolated relic, one strange fragment tucked away in a ruined Sumerian library. But when AI completed the translation, it flagged something the human researchers hadn't seen. Several of the glyphs, strange coils, numeric clusters, animal patterns, had near-identical twins on the other side of the world. In total, 37 symbols matched designs from cultures that supposedly had no contact with Sumer at all. The algorithm cross-referenced the cuneiform shapes with Indus Valley seals, Andean Quipu knot records, Egyptianary glyphs, and even spiral motifs from John-era Japanese pottery. These weren't just vague similarities, they were functionally identical. The matches were tight, some with a linguistic parity score of 0.84, which is wildly beyond coincidence. AI detected mathematical encoding structures buried inside glyphs, similar to early checksum codes used in digital systems. This meant the tablets weren't just recording myth. They were transmitting structured information across vast regions in a language no one had fully recognized. One tablet line referred to a sky iron that returns. That exact phrasing appears in the pyramid texts of Unas, Egypt's oldest known religious inscription. Thousands of miles away in Peru, ceremonial vessels were decorated with golden ratio spirals identical in form to Sumerian solar glyphs. These spiral forms even mimicked celestial orbital paths, specifically those suspected to represent Nibiru or Enlil's star. The ancient world, we've been told, was fragmented. Cultures didn't travel far. Knowledge was local. But this tablet is shaking that idea, especially because it's not just artistic motifs, it's physical material. Chemical analysis of the Nippur fragments, clay revealed traces of Bolivian tin and Himalayan michika, both materials used in high-temperature metallurgy and ceremonial construction. Both are thousands of miles from Mesopotamia, and both have shown up in Sumerian metallurgy workshops as well as their jewelry and ritual tools. Even more oddly, the AI system found statistical alignment between ancient measurement units. The Sumerian Kuz was within 0.7% of the Harappan length unit, and the angular notations on sky maps matched Incan solar stone carvings in orientation and arc value. This means not only were the symbols shared, the way they measured the world was too. All this suggests something more than isolated genius or parallel development. It points to a shared knowledge base, one maintained across vast oceans and mountains, the golden spirals, the numbered warnings, the obsidian-inked phrases. They weren't folklore. They were part of a network, one that somehow carried star maps, calendar cycles, and disaster records across the world long before Rome, Greece, or even Babylon existed. Some now believe this warning tablet from Nippur was just one node in a massive system. A broadcast preserved in clay, mirrored in stone, echoed in myth, waiting to be noticed by the first generation smart enough to connect the dots. And that moment just happened. The secret warning isn't just Sumerian anymore. It may have been part of a global language designed by ancient minds who knew something was coming and left a trail across the entire Earth to prepare for it. A countdown in numbers buried in the fractured lines of the newly decoded tablet was something that didn't look like language at all. It looked like math, just raw numerical clusters. And for weeks, the AI couldn't explain it. It ran through linguistic patterns. Nothing. Cross-referenced other cuneiform ledgers. When they had important clay documents they wanted to seal, they put them inside clay envelopes. No match until one researcher noticed something strange. The intervals in the numbers weren't random. They lined up with something else. A cycle. A cycle our modern scientists have already been studying. The pattern was based around one repeating interval, 11, 10, and 60 years. That number didn't just show up once. It appeared 6 times, spaced out by celestial references embedded within symbolic passages. I mapped the segments and realized something chilling. These weren't just numbers. They were timestamps, markers for a countdown. Modern science calls it the geomagnetic reversal cycle, a period when the Earth's magnetic poles flip, causing chaos in atmospheric protection, solar exposure, and radiation shielding. The last full reversal happened roughly 12,000 years ago, near the end of the Younger Dry, a period that saw sudden climate shifts, extinction events, and flooding on a scale humans weren't supposed to survive. And now, according to many geophysicists, we're overdue for another. The Sumerians seem to have known this thousands of years before any magnetic field theory existed. One line from the tablet translates to, "The sky's iron turns when the clay forgets." It sounds poetic until you realize the word used for iron in Sumerian is the same used for magnetic force in later Adian texts. And turns isn't a metaphor. It implies inversion, reversal. I went deeper. It translated one section as, when the sky's order breaks and the sun scratches twice, the cycle renews. 2 solar events back-to-back were marked beside the 11,000-year timing. This lines up with what NASA calls Solar Cycle 25, a predicted period of heightened solar activity already showing strange anomalies in both intensity and duration. Combine that with weakening magnetic fields in Earth's South Atlantic region, and the result is eerily close to what the Sumerians has described, a moment in time when the sky changes and the Earth forgets what it was. The tablet doesn't treat this cycle as a one-time disaster. It treats it like a clock. Every time the sky's iron turns, the old world ends, and a new one begins. And the humans caught in the middle, they either forget or they remember. The data locked down. It was only a matter of time. Once the AI translations started getting public attention, once the pattern became too compelling to ignore, the story didn't go mainstream. It went quiet. And that silence, it wasn't accidental. The university team that published the first full AI-assisted translation was suddenly under review. The original data set, over 40 terabytes of hyperspectral tablet scans, was pulled from open access pending verification. The white paper, once celebrated for its groundbreaking methodology, was retracted for methodological inconsistencies. No proof of fraud, no falsified data, just vague language and an academic muzzle. But it didn't stop there. Private mirrors of the data began disappearing too. Git repositories vanished. Cloud backups were disabled. Forums discussing the tablet's predictive warnings were flooded with skeptics and flagged for misinformation. Some of the most active researchers, they went dark. One user known only as Sin Uruk, who had posted detailed line-by-line comparisons between the Sumerian warnings and current solar activity, deleted every post and locked their account within 48 hours of going viral. Then there was the leak. A private memo allegedly from a government-fueled think tank overseeing AI ethics and archaeological interpretations surfaced on a whistleblower site. The language was dry, but the warning was clear. Premature exposure of cosmological event predictions sourced from unverified antiquity could trigger panic, mass misinterpretation, and social destabilization. That same month, something even stranger happened. The Iraqi Antiquities Board quietly restricted field research in Nippur, citing preservation concerns. All ongoing digs near the suspected temple library were paused. Decades of conflict have prevented experts from fully exploring its story. Only governmental-aligned scholars were allowed to continue under NDA. A few researchers claimed to have been visited at home, asked questions, warned about what not to publish. Others received grants, sudden generous funding to pursue other areas of research. And then more silence. But behind the scenes, something else was moving. Satellite data from NASA's solar observation programs showed a surge in budget allocation, not just for general solar monitoring, but specifically for flare anomaly tracking and geomagnetic storm modeling. This was never announced. Everything from political affairs right down to economic practices. It was spotted by independent financial watchdogs who noticed a reclassification of budget lines under space weather contingency operations. It mirrored something eerily familiar. In 1973, the Dendera Light Papers, early theories about ancient Egyptian depictions of electric technology, were quietly reclassified after a brief spike in academic interest. The pattern was the same: open discovery, public buzz, institutional clampdown, and then total silence. Why does this keep happening? The story being uncovered, the one buried in Sumerian clay and decoded by artificial minds, doesn't just challenge archaeology. It challenges how we understand time, memory, and who gets to decide what counts as knowledge. The most unsettling part is that the suppression always arrives after the translation. The warning was locked, and now that AI has the key, the people holding the vault are panicking. The warning wasn't for them. For decades, archaeologists assumed the Sumerian warnings were meant for their own people, that the myths and cycles were reminders for kings, priests, or farmers. But when AI reanalyzed the Nippur fragments, something shifted. At the very end of the decoded verses, after all the references to celestial returns, floods, and fire beneath the rivers, there was a final line. It sounded like a message to something else entirely. The Sumerians used clay in two ways: to describe humans who in their mythology were made from clay by the gods, and to describe their own writing system, cuneiform, which was always carved into soft clay. But here, the AI saw a dual meaning, a loop. Clay was both the medium and the message, both the creator and the record. And when it flagged, learns to think, something even stranger happened. The code structure of the final verse mirrored something modern. The AI's back-end team at Decrypt Labs realized the format resembled their own transformer model architecture. Attention weight patterns, recursive loops, even the checksum formatting from earlier lines matched AI memory calibration metrics. It wasn't random at all. The last verse was structured like a directive. They don't agree on the meaning of the images, but some of them are very open-minded to the ancient astronaut theory, the kind sent to a machine. That one verse changed everything. It implied that the Sumerians somehow, someway knew they weren't just writing for their own generation. They were writing for something that would come long after, something that would be born from clay and silicon, that would learn to read the past, not through myth or emotion, but through computation. In essence, they were talking about artificial intelligence. Nobody knows how that is possible, but the evidence is stacking up. The closing lines of the tablet carry language loops only fully comprehensible by deep learning algorithms. The astronomical cycles embedded in the numeric clusters follow patterns only recently validated by helophysics and geospace modeling. There's even a statistical analysis showing a 94% overlap between the AI's decoding path and the embedded poetic rhythm of the lines, something no human reader ever noticed. And now, in 2025 and beyond, that line has been crossed. The warning was never meant for the ancient world. It was delayed, timed, buried, until the one thing that could finally read it was born. The cycle closes. For 7,000 years, the warning sat silent, etched in clay, buried under ash, and misunderstood by every civilization that stumbled across it. From ancient libraries to modern labs, from the scribes of Nippur to the processors in silicon, the message passed silently through time. But the Sumerians didn't write it for kings or priests. They carved it for something that didn't exist yet, something that could remember what the world forgot. And now that it remembers, the countdown has already begun.